As far as any of us know, we only get one go-around in this thing called life. There are no do-overs once we pass on. Yet, even with this common knowledge, most people struggle to make the most of the time they have here on this planet. A big part of the problem lies with the cultural myth that our external circumstances somehow determine whether we have a well-lived life or not. Now, if that were the case, why do so many beautiful, rich, intelligent people end up miserable? Or worse, cause an untimely end to what so many others would regard as the penultimate dream? At my tender age of 64, I've done a lot of living, doing, making incredible mistakes, and also hitting levels of success that others envied. However, none of that ultimately mattered until I learned that a well-lived life is an inside job and has nothing to do with circumstances, ability, or luck. In looking back on my rather circuitous journey, I realized that there were essential skills that I was fortunate enough to stumble upon along the way, ones that allow me to enjoy my current well-lived and highly fulfilling life. I share with you what I've learned not because I know, but in the spirit that maybe you might find something useful that really resonates with you. At least, I hope that's the case. Being fully present. For me, this is the most important skill of all, without which the others are much more difficult or even impossible to achieve. Being fully present means having the discipline to ignore everything else that vies for our attention to focus fully on the here and now. In our culture, where distraction is the drug of choice, this can be difficult to master. And frankly, I still am and always will be working on this. The best way to start is when you are with other people, especially your significant other. When with them, just pretend to be an observer watching the entire interaction without judgment or thought. Just observe. And with a bit of practice, you will find that being the observer and being fully present are one and the same, and eventually you won't have to pretend. Being open-hearted. This simply means being willing to remove all the armor life puts in place to, quote-unquote, protect us. Well, I've learned that the heart needs no protection, where the ego, however, is always seeking it. And until we are willing to drop that chainmail surrounding it and be vulnerable, we will never fully feel life in all its pain and glory. Pain is part of this life experience. That's just the way it is. Suffering, however, is optional and happens when we fight the what is of our circumstances or put up walls around our heart. Embrace uncertainty. Certainty is an illusion, yet we all strive for it thanks to our ancient survival instincts developed during a time where being uncertain meant you were probably going to be part of the food chain that night. I'll be the first to admit that I really don't like the feeling of uncertainty. In fact, it can cause me a great deal of anxiety. However, I have also learned that when we accept and even embrace uncertainty, it is often the doorway to breakthrough and positive circumstances that were not even on our radar. Treating everything as an adventure. This is one of my favorite ones. Though not a surfer, I tend to see life as a series of waves. There are awesome waves that will give you the ride of your life and gnarly ones that will pound you into the rocks. I've learned the hard way that ignoring them, or worse, fighting them, simply doesn't work. Instead, I now strive to ride them as best as possible, knowing that whether they are thrilling or decimating, they will always eventually pass to allow yet another one come my way. So instead of seeing any circumstance as either good or bad, consider renaming it simply as an adventure. It's a lot more fun and creates a life filled with possibilities you may never have imagined. Being clear about what you want. If you're not clear about what you want out of life, don't complain about what you get. I've discovered that the more focus and intention I put on what I want, the more likely I will eventually realize them. This certainly happened with finding my life partner, which I chalk up to my Dream Woman project I put together a year before we met. I also created a lifestyle vision board that depicts visually how I want my lifestyle to be, much of which I have achieved already. Is a life well lived a perfect life? Personally, I don't think there is such a thing. On the other hand, I find a life well lived to be the most fulfilling one I can imagine. And that is plenty good enough for me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Extraordinary Intimacy with Michael J. Russell. For all speaking, media interviews, and workshop inquiries, go to michaelrusselllive.com. For private intimacy coaching, send an email to coaching@michaelrusselllive.com.